we have, followed along with the Teesworks or the whole Freeport idea saying, how bad these places are. It's not really going to provide, too many benefits to the area. They almost act more as a magnet, pulling jobs to a certain location rather than bringing more jobs to a location. Needless to say, Teesworks or the Tees Valley Works was going to have very questionable results. But this, of course, is the flagship. This is the Freeport. This is what Liz Truss set up. It's what Rishi Sunak himself champions. It is going to be the model for several other types of these developments. They're going to be set up. And to be honest, if this is the flagship, then you really don't want this to be the flagship model, because there has been a lot of very suspicious and murky, dodgy goings on. We've just recently had, after not only Private Eye but the Yorkshire Post did some absolutely fantastic reporting on what had been going on, with revelations that councillors had got into a meeting and had not been even given the material that they were going to be voted on, but were expected right at that moment to vote on it. So they had no recourse to scrutinize it, to look at it. They were just told, you have to vote on this now. There's so much that went on, and there's a fantastic piece in the Financial Times that goes through all the recent report that went on. And one of the things you've seen from the Conservatives, from even people like Ben Houchen, is that, this report, this exonerates us. There was nothing dodgy going on at Teesworks. There was no criminality. There was no, dodgy dealings going on whatsoever. Again, if you read the report, there was plenty of enough to say be quite suspicious about. And one of the things that we should report about that in particular report, it was not a criminal investigation. The person in charge of that particular report of the investigation did not have power to compel, to get evidence, or anything like that. And what they are trying to do now is that they are trying to shut down an MP by the name of Andy McDonald. And Andy McDonald has been one of the loudest voices, and good on him for being that, for calling out what was going on here at Teesworks. He's obviously the I was going to say the mayor. He's the MP for Middlesbrough. But he's been doing a fantastic work calling out, bringing what is being brought forward by these reporters to the attention. He's part of the reason why we got this initial report in the first place. And now that this report, again, and we have to say in very big quotation marks, supposedly is now exonerated the Teesworks, that there's nothing dodgy going on at all, they are now going after Andy McDonald to try and shut him down. They are trying to shut him down in quite a big, significant way. And recently, he sent a letter to the Speaker, which he has published online. And we're going to go through this because it just goes to show you that the stuff at Teesworks is not over. Ben Houchen needs to lose the next election. And at the moment, he is on the course to lose. And once we get a different mayor in, they themselves need to launch a full and proper, investigation with power to subpoena, power to compel witnesses to find out what was going on. And we'll get to that as well in a bit, because even Andy McDonald brings it up in his letter as well. But before we do get onto that as well, please do remember to click on the like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page. And of course, the Buy Me a Coffee link where you can buy me a coffee, and the YouTube thank you button. And of course, thank you very much to everyone who does support the channel. You can also just click the like and share button as well. But let's get on into this. There we go, making it a bit bigger. This, of course, from Andy McDonald on Twitter. saying Sir Simon Clarke and his Tory chums have now written the most ridiculous letter to the Speaker of the House of Commons. It is just a stunt to distract from the damaging report into Teesworks. Here is my letter to the Speaker in response. So, dear Mr. Speaker, I see from social media that a letter has been sent about me by a good number of my neighbouring Conservative Party colleagues, namely Sir Simon Clarke, Sir Robert Goodwall, Peter Gibson, and Paul Howell, John Mortimer, and Matt Vickers. What they remarkably overlook is that the concern here is not about what political parties and their MPs say, it is about what has happened to over £500 million of taxpayers' money. Like I say, the report into Teesworks, damaging. And like I say, there is a fantastic piece by the Financial Times that cover this as well. And there's, I think, a piece today got released in the Yorkshire Post. I haven't read it yet, but I saw the title of the article. So if you've got the Yorkshire Post, or you can go to the FT and take a look at that. Trust me, there's plenty more to be suspicious about what went on here, as Andy McDonald will get into as well. But to respond to their ridiculous request of you, in their letter, they asked you to consider reform of the exercise of parliamentary privilege. I am therefore sorry to have troubled you with such nonsense, as we both know, and they do, that just because they don't like what I said in the chamber, there is no way on God's earth that you are going to interfere with the ancient right of parliamentary privilege. I, of course, do not need to tell you, but it seems that they need to be told that parliamentary privilege is there to ensure that parliamentarians can raise important issues of concern to their constituents and in the countries and taxpayers more broadly without fear. I entirely reject that I have in any way abused that precious privilege. Again, I do not need to labour the point about the sacrosanct nature of parliamentary privilege, but I do note the very worrying practice that has developed in recent times and that has now bedeviled parliamentarians and others alike in what is known as strategic lawsuits against public participation, or SLAP suits. I am sure that many of my critics might want to silence me and drag me down into litigation. As someone who, unlike many of my constituents, is fortunate enough to be able to put food on my table and pay my bills, I could possibly match the litigation resources that my critics so clearly, desperately want to launch against me, despite the weakness of any such case. However, in terms of the context of what my colleagues are now saying to you, they are complaining about the words I used in the chamber. And I am grateful, at least on this occasion, they have refrained from making allegations that I have used words criminality and illegal. These have been touted out by some of my colleagues and the media alike, quite inaccurately attributing them to me, and indeed found their way into the terms of reference put into the investigation panel on Teesworks by the Department of Levelling Up the Housing and Committee. There is, of course, no evidence of me ever using those particular words, but for the very simple reason that I did not use them despite the assertions to the contrary. Your correspondence and my critics refer to paragraph 1.7 of the report of Angie Ridgewell and others, in which it says that we have, quote, found no evidence to support allegations of corruption or illegality. That Miss Ridgewell and her colleagues have found no such evidence does not necessarily mean that there is none, or that there is still no grave cause for concern. And bear in mind, there is still a lot of grave cause concern. If you read that report, yeah, there's still a lot of questions and stuff that needs answering. There needs to be a lot of stuff looked into this. Like I say, they are desperate to try and defend this, because this and to those other Conservative MPs, and especially, um, I've forgotten his name now, and I've just said it. Oh, what a brain fart that is. Um, Ben Houchen, that's it. And to Ben Houchen, who uh, who himself staked his entire mayoralship of getting this Freeport up and running. Yeah, it's not a good look when you have all this stuff going on. This is why there has been a commitment by all the people running in the next election to replace Ben Houchen, have all said there needs to be a full investigation to find out what really has gone on here. But like I say, we'll get back to this now. So that Mrs. Ridgewell and her colleagues also found no such evidence does not necessarily mean that there is none, and of course there is still no grave cause of concern. So back to it. So hers was not a criminal investigation. She had no power to compel witnesses to provide evidence, and it is noticeable that at least one very significant former officer of the Tees Valley Combined Authority did not cooperate with her in her inquiry. In addition, Miss Ridgewell has no power to compel private sector joint venture partners to produce documentation or evidence. So again, this is something that needs to be really investigated. It needs to be a proper, serious investigation. And bear in mind, Gove could have done this. He could have ordered this, but he didn't, because this is like a big flagship thing for the Conservatives. It would not surprise me if this was one of the things they tried to run on, doing things like, Teesworks, bringing these types of other things to everywhere else. So it's kind of embarrassing that you've got so much, shall we say, dodgy dealings going on up there. So back to it. Indeed, the paragraph at 4.3 of the report, Miss Ridgewell states, quote, "In the time available to the panel, we have not been able to pursue all lines of evidence or examinations or examine all the transactions." And again, at paragraph 4.4, she says, "A number of these issues have been raised by third parties which are outside the scope of our review. It is little like a house buyer survey in which the surveyor says he hasn't inspected the roof, the electrics, or even carried out investigations of subsidence, as those matters are just outside of his remit of the survey. I would not trouble you with a further detailed analysis of the report, as that would not be appropriate, and you would not tolerate me doing so. But to suffice to say that there are grave concerns that derive from the revelations contained within this report as it is, and have now emerged from other sources, all of which ask serious, scathing questions about what has happened to almost £500 million of taxpayers' money has now been used in this project. Like Miss Ridgewell, I am not a criminal law expert in these matters. It has not been a very long time since it has been a very long time since I last practiced criminal law. But I can say with any, but I cannot say with any certainty or authority that one of the relevant criminal authorities would not be interested in these matters at some stage. I gave you that information by the way of background and context. I cannot see that my critics have afforded me the courtesy of furnishing me with a copy of their letter to you, so I will check again. But as is, I appear only to be informed by that letter to you by the reports from social media. I can, however, assure you, Mr. Speaker, that I am going to do them the courtesy of copying them into this correspondence. And as you can see, they're all copied in down there. So why are they going after Andy McDonald? Well, it's as he said there. There has been a lot of stuff and attributed to him that he really hasn't said. And of course, there's parliamentary privilege in this. They're trying to remove parliamentary privilege from him because he has been the loudest voice in Parliament calling for an investigation into what's going on in Teesworks. And bear in mind, we've now had that very damaging report. Very damaging report. And as was said there, she had no power to compel evidence gathering or witnesses or anything like that. It was not a criminal investigation. Some of the stuff that was brought to her attention by some of the stuff that came up when they were doing it, or from outside third parties, not in her scope to investigate. So there are still many, many questions that need to be asked about Teesworks and just what is going on. And it is very, very telling that all those, MPs around it, and especially Ben Houchen, are desperately trying to say, we've been exonerated. There was nothing going wrong in that report. You don't read it. Trust us. There's nothing going on. And now they're trying to silence Andy McDonald for speaking up and speaking out about this. But I don't think that's going to be, shall we say, very effective. In the next probably edition of the Private Eye, they are going to be able to go over that report, because the report was literally published just as the Eye went to print. So there'll be a ton of stuff probably in the next Private Eye about what they looked into, what they're looking at in that report in particular. That'll be interesting read in next week's Private Eye. So if you are interested in finding more about that, then I definitely recommend you get the next Private Eye. I think that will be the 7th. I think I want to say it will come out. Don't quote me on that, but I think it would be the 7th, I think. Given it's like one every 2 weeks, isn't? I think so. I can't remember now. But also, go to the Yorkshire Post. They have done some fantastic reporting about this. They will probably do and continue to sort of do a lot of really good reporting about this as well. Like I say, I knew there was something up today. I haven't had a chance to read it, but I suspect again it's talking about the report and stuff like that and what's in it. So yeah, and of course there's the one in Financial Times as well, talks about very detailed in some of the stuff that went on in that report as well. So plenty of questions do need to be asked, and it is making, I think quite rightly, a lot of Conservative MPs around there very nervous, and especially Ben Houchen. And remember, this is like the flagship Rishi Sunak project. And as I said before, it would not surprise me if they are trying to, shall we say, calm the waters, keep things cool and calm, and people not looking at it. Where in a general election, they can just come forward and say, oh my God, look how fantastic Teesworks is progressing. Wouldn't you like a Teesworks near you? And yeah, that's where we are in all this. So we'll see. We'll see what happens in this. But yeah, to echo the words of Andy McDonald, and I cannot say without any certainty or authority that one of the relevant criminal authorities would not be interested in these matters at some stage. We'll see. We'll see if, shall we say, relevant criminal authorities decide to get themselves involved in this. Wouldn't surprise me if maybe eventually it does, but the fact that you've had such good reporting on this has been fantastic, and really highlighting like just how bad and what's been going on at Teesworks. But again, as we've said before many times when we've talked about free ports in the past, these free ports, yeah, not really as good as they are claimed to be. But there you go. So as always, thank you very much for watching, and of course, as always, we'll see you all next time.